Survivor is just 1 week away from crowning a brand new Soul Survivor. So let's catch up on everything that happened in last week's episode before then. Okay, first things first, we see this like showmance, if you will, of Dee and Austin finally really coming to fruition, coming to the limelight. And I kind of support it, but what are your thoughts?
I kind of like it now, but I feel like it kind of just came out of the blue. I didn't notice it for all the season until like last episode when people were starting to point it out. So it just feels, I mean, you know, editing wise, they probably had to go through a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe they just left a lot of that out.
Yeah. My thought is they're both very strong players, and I think that there are feelings involved, but I think they're trying to keep their heads in the game first, which what's interesting is we do see this play out later in the episode, and I think we'll see it continue to play out on this season. The next big thing that we see in this episode, which just was absolutely mind-blowing, was that Katurah shares kind of her personal story from childhood. So she and her family kind of joined this cult of sorts, if you will. And she was kind of cut off from the outside world. She didn't, like, a lot of their stuff was all just in, like, bags. They're very little things.
And she was working, like, 3 to 4 jobs.
Yeah, but when she was, what was it, like 12 or 13, they were told that she would have to be the cult leader's next wife. And that is then when her family decided overnight they were just going to leave. And she goes back into the world, back into high school. And she was different, and she was just like, I didn't really know what to do with myself. And then she's worked her way up. Now she's a lawyer. Really crazy story, and that's what I love about the storytelling aspect in the new era is you really learn these like rich stories of these players that we would never know otherwise. So I thought that was really cool. The next part of the episode is that someone has to take a journey, which we've been seeing all season long. They go off to this other island via boat, have to make some kind of decision of sorts. Well, this time they all decide that they want to go on it, so they all pull rocks. The person with the green rock has to go. This time around, it's Emily. Emily goes on the journey to the other island. What's interesting about this is we actually see a puzzle that was at the very beginning of the season, which was the Savvy puzzle. What's interesting about this, though, is this is credited as like one of the hardest Survivor puzzles. And it's interesting because we saw a few episodes ago Emily say how like thinking on her feet is not always her thing. She struggled with the like math puzzle they had to do. And so she immediately is like, I don't want to take the risk because if you lose your vote. But if you win, what happened if you won? Do you remember?
If you won, you were safe at Tribal that night.
That's what it was.
Which, smart move on her part with so few people, but I kind of wanted to see if she could figure it out.
Some interesting foreshadowing, which we'll get to in a second. Then we get to this immunity challenge, which was just so exciting, if you ask me. So they had all this rope attached to them, and they had to completely untangle it, and then the rope had to get them across an obstacle course in this immunity challenge. What was interesting, though, is everyone had a different strategy on how to do this. And so we saw a lot of the, like the leaderboard, I guess, if you will, change constantly because you were so unsure from the viewer standpoint of who was actually going to win.
And I think this is my favorite challenge we've had this season because of the constant changing. I feel like all the other ones have been just kind of meh, in my opinion. So this one was really fun.
Also, like, from the viewer perspective, easy to follow. Like, I feel like I struggle to, like, follow what's going on in challenges because there's so many moving parts. But this was very simple. You had to get enough rope to get down to the end, get your bags, and throw it at the puzzle pieces.
And compared to, like, some previous ones, almost everybody, you know, they're not like somebody's still back at the start, somebody's still here, because they're all kind of on, it's just like one big piece instead of all those multiple little pieces. What's
funny, though, is there was some very specific detail on that the puzzle had to be the right word on the front and back. So Drew ends up winning, but it could have been Austin. Austin was like way closer than Drew, really, but he messed up the back and never caught that. Little mistakes is what gets you in Survivor, which was interesting. Also, I will say really quickly, we were talking earlier today, we were not like the most thrilled that Drew won immunity. I would have kind of liked to see Drew go home this week, if I'm being honest. He's kind of getting on my nerves a little bit.
I agree.
But back at Tribe, we see this this Julie blindside that everyone's kind of in on, everyone's working on. This is where the Dee and Austin thing comes in. So Austin tells Dee, because Dee is the only one on the outs of how this works, but Dee is very closely aligned with Julie. So then Dee then decides to tell Julie ahead of time to use her idol that she has and use it to save her and then cast whatever vote she wants, but not to get Austin because that's what Julie wants to do. That's really complicated, but hopefully you're following.
I wish that Austin would have taken his idol back from Julie, made her feel secure, then told Dee, because then at least Julie would not have had the idol. I don't know why he didn't ask for it back to begin with.
That's an interesting point. So we get to Tribal Council, and it is Emily that goes home. So everyone casts their vote against Julie. Julie uses her idol. She casts the sole vote to evict Emily, which is interesting.
I'm sad.
I don't know.
I didn't like Emily to start the season. But she's grown on me. And
one of the best character developments we've seen in the most recent seasons. I absolutely loved it. All right, brand new episode tonight on CBS or stream on Paramount+. We're just 1 week away from the finale. I'm very excited to see what happens.